Rahim. I am presenting a case of lower limb swelling. I received a patient, 55 years old, Taylor from Nothia, Peshawar, is now having complaints of prominent veins in the right leg for past 2 years, swelling and pain right leg for 1 year. The patient is asymptomatic 2 years back when he noticed prominent veins in the right leg on the medial side. Gradually, the prominence of the vein went on increasing. The vein became more prominent on prolonged standing. He started having swelling in the right leg and ankle region 1 year back. The pain and swelling was more in the evening hours and on prolonged standing. History of itching and pigmentation in the right leg and ankle region was there for the last 1 year. There is no history of ulceration and no history of night cramps. Relieved after taking pain medications, and the patient was having no history of any fever. There was no history suggestive of deep vein thrombosis in the past, and he is diabetic since last 5 years. He is a smoker and he uses metformin 500 milligrams twice a day and Gatril tablet 2 milligrams once a day. He occasionally uses Brufen 200 milligrams for his pain symptoms, and he had no known drug or any other allergies. The familial history was non-significant for varicose vein or any other uh, disease. I asked about any history of constipation, which was not there. The majority history was non-significant in respiratory history. On asking about the respiratory symptoms, he has no history of any cough symptoms or asthma. He had a previous episode of UTI, and on asking about the muscular skeletal status, he complains of leg pain after prolonged standing, as I stated earlier. On examination, after
Just
taking
stop here, Heather.
Ji sir, Ji sir.
So basically, you are presenting a case history of a 55 years old person who is a tailor by profession,
Yes, sir.
and he presented you with the the main presentation was prominent veins on the medial side of his right leg. Is it true?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For the past 2 years, and there
Yes,
was
sir.
some associated swelling also for the same limb for the past 1 year.
Yes,
He's a
sir.
smoker and diabetic also, and
Yes,
he is
sir.
on oral anti-glycemic
Control.
drugs.
Yes,
True?
sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So, and you did mention that he has no history which is suggestive of deep vein thrombosis. So, why it's important to ask about the predisposing factors for deep vein thrombosis and what his history you are asking from, what questions in history you are asking favoring deep vein thrombosis?
Sir, I asked about any history of previous uh, any history of previous leg surgeries or any prolonged surgeries. Basically we have to ask for the risk factors for deep vein thrombosis, which includes any history of trauma, any surgery. I asked the patient about malignancy, any malignancy that he went through, and any infection of the lower limbs or inflammatory bowel disease, but he was all those history was negative for that, which I didn't mention it here, but I asked about it. And it is important because, sir, we want to know about deep vein thrombosis, because deep vein thrombosis can lead to varicose veins.
Okay, so one of the reason for secondary varicosity is the deep vein thrombosis you have rightly mentioned, and you have to particularly ask about the events which are suggestive of either previous history of deep vein thrombosis, like he did not meet any road traffic accident. He did not undergo any kind of prolonged surgery. He has no history of hospitalization for major illness for which he was supposed to be bedridden for a long time. And he has he, he's giving in history of prolonged air travel?
No, sir. I forgot to
Okay,
ask about air travel, sir.
air travel. That's important. Why it's important to ask about air travels?
Because air travel can lead to deep vein thrombosis, sir. Because the aeroplane is a closed chamber with high pressure, sir.
Okay, so economy class syndrome.
Yes.
And is he on any medication other than anti-glycemic?
No, sir. No drug history apart
So,
from that.
okay. And has he got any history of irradiation to his body, especially pelvis and abdomen and limbs?
No, sir.
Any history of surgery in the limb or in the pelvis or in the abdomen?
No, sir.
Okay.
He didn't mention
Uh,
anything.
did you take his history about viral profile?
No, sir. I forgot to mention it, but I took it, and he didn't know anything about it, sir.
Okay, why is it important to ask about the viral infection in the past?
Sir, because I think
Hepatitis B and C infection could have led to compromised liver function, leading to chronic liver disease, and that in turn lead to ascites. Ascites in turn lead to
don't lead to
DVT
varicose
formation and
and
varicosities
varicose.
also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, uh, so and was there any history of surgery to the contralateral limb for the same or some other disease?
No, sir. He clearly mentioned it that he had no other history that was suggested for or giving help in to know about the varicosities, sir.
Okay,
He didn't mention.
while gathering informations about the details of the history, one you are specifically asking, when you are generally asking about any history of hospitalization or any surgical intervention in the past, number one. And on the other hand, you have to specifically ask about the same kind of surgery on the contralateral limb or the same limb also. So
Okay,
that
sir.
has to be mentioned specifically, and that should be mentioned in positivity or negativity in both cases, right?
Right, sir.
So in history, other than the heaviness in the limb and some itching, was there any other symptom related to that?
Sir, sir, he only complains of pigment, sir, itching, and he was worried about the pigmentation in the right leg and ankle region. He didn't
Okay,
give
there's some
any.
pigmentation around the ankle on the
Yes, sir.
same side.
Yes, sir.
And any other history which can point towards the diagnosis of
Sir,
varicose vein, deep vein thrombosis, or any other illness,
the pain was
like aching sensation, heaviness in the limb, crawling sensation, burning, cramping,
he was
or venous claudication.
right. Sir, he was clearly giving the history of pain, which was more in the evening. That was pointing towards the veins. Apart from that, sir, he was giving the history of it after prolonged standing, which was also pointing towards varicosity, sir. Apart from that, he was saying that in evening he was feeling heaviness in the limb of the affected limb, sir.
Okay, right. So it's important that you have to specifically ask either leading questions or open-ended questions, preferably open-ended questions about the symptoms. And if the patient is unable to answer in that way, so you can ask leading questions also. Do you have this problem? Do you have that problem? Because the varicose veins patient, they can either they remain asymptomatic, and the concern of the patient is only cosmesis, or on the other hand, they can present with few symptoms, as you already mentioned, like aching, itching, or burning sensation and cramping like that, or they can present to you with complications. And one of the
Right.
complications you have mentioned that is about pigmentation and discoloration of the skin.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any relevance of smoking with the disease?
Sir, Buerger's disease is commonly present in smokers, sir,
Okay.
and it can lead to superficial thrombophlebitis, sir, which can
Okay.
be a differential
And
cause.
you mentioned about the patient, one of the presentation of the patient was swelling of the limb. And it's not right from the beginning, it's started a year after the disease appeared. So what's the
Yes, sir.
significance and correlation?
Sir, maybe because of the sir, because of the venous hypertension, sir, there was edema that has developed after 1 year, sir, which was presenting as swelling of the limb.
Okay. So now go on to the second segment of your history, and that is examination.
Yes, sir. Sir, after taking informed consent, the patient was examined in a well-lit room in the presence of a chaperone. The patient lying in the bed with leg elevated by keeping two pillows under it, a well-oriented in time, place, and person. He was overweight adult with BMI of 27 or 28. The pulse was 93 per minute. It was regular, and the BP was 190, so 140 by 90. Sir. After socially acceptable exposure of both lower limbs, examination was done in the standing position. On inspection, it revealed dilated veins on the medial side of the right leg, ankle, foot, extending up to the right thigh region, which was the long saphenous region territory. The ankle flare was present on cuffing. There was cuff impulse present at the medial side of the groin. Pigmentation was present in the leg and ankle area with tight contracted leg. No skin ulceration seen and no prominent veins were seen in the left leg, sir. During palpation, the patient has dilated tortuous elongated vein palpable on the medial side of the leg and ankle extending to the mid-thigh region, sir. Oval-like skin was thickened and warmed. There, there is discoloration and thickening associated with it, and and the swelling in both limbs was both legs having same limb girth. I could feel the fluid thrill on cuffing, and I felt it at the middle side of the groin. I could feel the fluid thrill at the middle side of the groin region while tapping the lower end of the varicose vein, sir. After emptying the vein, I applied a tourniquet just below the SFJ. On standing, varicose vein did not refill, but when I released the tourniquet, the varicose veins filled rapidly. On applying the tourniquet at the level of the ankle, the second one on below the knee, and the third above the knee, and fourth one just below the saphenous opening. After making patients stand on toes, tourniquet was sequentially released from below. After releasing the third tourniquet, which was above the knee, uh, varicosities begins to develop, sir. I applied a rubber tourniquet on the upper one-third of the calf and asked the patient to perform 10 repeated tiptoes movement. The patient did not experience any pain, sir. After emptying veins on lying down, I do not feel any defect in the fascia, sir. Examination of the lymph node did not reveal any inguinal lymphadenopathy. Left leg examination was normal. Abdominal examination was unremarkable for deep palpation in pelvis, and I examined the scrotum in standing position but could not appreciate any scrotal varicosities or any swelling. DRE was also non-significant, and left leg had no obvious swelling or skin change. During auscultation, I found no bruise which were audible. A handheld Doppler examination, which I did by placing the Doppler probe over the SFJ, there was a prolongation of whoop sound while the calf muscle was pressed and released. On systemic examination, there was normal S1 and S2 sounds with no murmurs. Normal vesicular breathing with no crepitations or wheeze were there. Respiratory rate was 15 per minute. Abdominal on your abdominal examination, it was soft, non-distended, scaphoid examination, and could not appreciate any mass. In the pelvis, bowel sounds were normal and there were no ascites present. I want to summarize my case as a 55-year-old tailor by profession having BMI of 27, presented with prominent vein on the medial side of the thigh and leg of the right limb with obvious pigmentations. On inspection, Morris's sign was positive. On palpation, Trendelenburg's one, which was the rapid filling from above, was Shor's, and multiple tourniquet test was positive. Fagan's and modified Perthes test was negative. Rest of the examination was unremarkable, including abdominal examination for any mass, and same was true for the left legs. My clinical diagnosis is of long-standing C4B, ENAS, and PR varicose veins according to C classification with SFJ incompetence and mid-thigh perforator incompetence. My differentials are AV malformation, orthostatic edema, and Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so your diagnosis was made on based on your history and clinical examination that this patient had a long-standing varicose vein with some of the complications, and the varicosity was of primary nature. True or false?
Sir, it seems to be true, but I didn't. The etiology which I wrote was no venous cause was definitely identified, sir. Therefore, I wrote it EN.
Okay, right. So while starting with the examination of the patient, you made him stand first.
Yes,
right?
Sir. Right. Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was your position at that moment?
Sir, I was sitting on a stool and I was looking at I was looking at him.
At how much distance?
Sir, at a distance of less 2 feet or less.
Okay. So while sitting on a stool and looking at the leg of a person who is standing in front of you, maybe you will be able to see the details of the skin and underlying structures at the level of the knee joint, but it will be a bit inappropriate to look at the ankle and foot. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So what should be the adequate position of the examiner?
Then, sir, he has to be on the floor, sir, with one knee down.
Okay, sitting or leaning for bending, right? And the
Yes,
maximum
sir.
distance between your eyes and the patient's part to be examined should not be more than 30 centimeters, right? Because you
Right.
can miss so many important informations from a distance. So you're not supposed to do that.
Right,
so,
sir.
And while looking at the leg on one side and then you looked at the other side also, you found that there was some eczematous or some pigmentations around the ankle of the right leg.
Yes,
and the
sir.
other leg was totally found to be normal.
Yes, sir.
And there were varicosities or were dilated tortuous veins along the course of long or short saphenous vein.
It was along the course of the long saphenous vein, sir.
So from where up till where did you see the long saphenous vein?
It started from the ankle on the medial side and originated anterior and posterior to the medial malleolus. It moves upward, and sir, it was also there in the mid thigh region as well, along with sir saphenofemoral junction.
Okay, but one thing is more important, that you did not mention anything about the general physical examination of the patient.
Sir, I mentioned it, sir.
You mentioned, okay, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. And you, then what you did after you looked at the front side of the whole lower limb, and you found that there was dilated vein along the course of long saphenous vein, starting from the dorsum of the foot and all the way on the medial side and on the medial side of the thigh
Yes,
and
sir.
up to the groin. True.
Yes, sir.
Was there any evidence of involvement of the collaterals?
Sir, sir, there wasn't any, sir.
Okay.
It was a bit diffuse one in the lower leg, but in the upper leg, sir, it was typically following the territory of the long vein, saphenous vein.
Okay. And but how did you check for the short saphenous vein?
Sir, I am sir, for the short saphenous vein, sir. I look at from the back, sir. There was no swelling
How?
on the
But
leg.
how? But how? You went on the other side of
Inspected.
the patient?
I made him to take a turn, sir.
Okay, you ask him to take a turn and look at the opposite side,
Opposite side,
and you
sir.
should concentrate on where do you look for exactly for the short saphenous vein?
Sir, we have to look at the lateral side, lateral malleolus, behind the lateral malleolus, and then at the midline of the posterior calf muscles.
Okay, up to?
Sir, up to the popliteal fossa, sir, and sometimes we have to look even above, because 50% of the popliteal vein drains into the popliteal fossa and 50% in the mid thigh.
Okay,
Short saphenous vein.
right. So this was all about inspection.
Yes, sir.
And during inspection, did you see any discrepancy in the length and the girth of the limb as compared to the other one?
No, sir. There was no discrepancy in the sir. There was no discrepancy in the girth, sir. But the on inspection, it seems to be a bit contracted, sir.
Okay.
The skin was
And
tight.
was there any evidence of hair loss?
Yes, sir.
Was there any evidence of hair loss
Yes,
on the
sir.
affected side?
There was an evidence of hair loss. I forgot to mention.
What was the color of the skin or line skin like?
Sir, the skin was shiny, and there was hair loss. It was shiny and a bit light, darker in color, sir, than the left one.
Shiny, and it was a bit darker in color as compared to the opposite
Left
limb.
one. There was also pigmentation, sir, due to hemosiderosis
Okay.
in the ankle lesion.
So did you notice any evidence for the complications associated with varicose veins or deep vein thrombosis?
Sir, yes, sir. I look at the sir for leg any leg ulcer, venous ulcer. I look for, sir,
Where exactly you have to look for?
it in the gaiters area, sir. The gaiter area is
In the gaiters, where is exactly the gaiters area?
sir. Gaiters area is the area of the lower extremity over which gaiters fit around, and gaiters is a protective clothing from person's ankle till leg below the knee. Below the knee, sir.
Okay, it's an hollow area just above the medial malleolus on the medial side of the leg is known as gaiters area.
Yes.
And this is the most common site of venous or varicose ulcers happen. Okay, any other complication?
Sir, there was pigmentation, which is one of the complications. Sir, there wasn't any sign of edema, sir, but there was lipodermatosclerosis because the ankle area was a bit tight and contracted, sir.
Ankle area was a bit tight and contracted.
Yes,
so
sir.
what could be a most possible reason for that?
It is lipodermatosclerosis, sir.
Okay, right. And then how did you proceed with the examination?
Sir, then I went for the palpation. I checked it. It was dilated tortuous veins, which were palpable. The skin was a bit warm and thickened over the veins. The discoloration and thickening associated with there was discoloration, sir. And after that, I performed the test which were specific for varicose veins. First of all, I performed a Morris's test, and
Okay,
on
okay. Was there any evidence of ankle edema?
uh, sir, there wasn't
Ankle edema.
sir, there wasn't any pitting edema, sir. It was a bit of a non-pitting type.
Non-pitting edema. What's the specific name given to this kind of edema? Which is a bit non-pitting with the swelling of the subcutaneous tissue and raised or lying surface.
Sorry, sir, I don't know about it, sir.
What is brawny edema? This is known as brawny edema.
Brawny
right?
edema. Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, next.
Sir, then, sir, I performed Maurice's test, sir. I could feel the fluid thrill when I asked the patient to cough on the SFJ, sir.
The patient was still in a standing position?
Yes, sir. Sir, the patient was in standing position, sir.
Yes.
The patient was still in standing position, and sir, I asked the patient to cough. After that, sir, I palpated the SFJ junction, and I could feel the full fluid fill, sir.
Okay, the cough impulse or Morris's test is the same thing, and there's no need to remember the fancy names, but the cough impulse would be right name for the test to be performed. And this is basically you locate and identify the saphenofemoral junction, which is just medial to the femoral pulsation below the inguinal ligament, and put your thumb over there and ask the patient to raise the patient's limb and empty the veins, and then ask him to cough. And
Yes,
the one thing is visible cough impulse, when you can feel the filling of the part of the long surface vein just at the groin region, and impulse of the regurgitated blood can be seen. That is known as visible cough impulse. And the other one is a palpable cough impulse. When you put your thumb or part of your hand on that region, and you can feel the thrill of the regurgitated blood. So that is, both can be positive and both can be negative in that case, right? It suggests what is the significance of this clinical test?
Sir, it suggests that there is saphenofemoral junction incompetence, sir, on expired.
Okay, it shows the incompetency of saphenofemoral junction, SFJ.
Yes,
so,
sir.
what other clinical tests did you perform?
Sir, after that, sir, I performed short tests, sir, in which I placed one of my hands on the on just below the saphenofemoral junction at the varicosities, and I just tapped the lower end of the varicose veins. I could feel the fluid fill. Basically, the fluid fill, there was a conduction of fluid fill.
Okay. So basically, what's the significance of this clinical test?
Sir, this test basically shows that sir, incompetence of the walls at the axial vein, sir.
Okay, basically you put your one thumb or one finger at the one end of the long surface vein, and you tap it at the other end. Normally, the thrill or the pulse will not travel through the whole length of the long surface vein, because the column of the blood inside the long surface vein is divided into different segments because of the presence of the veins. If the veins along the course of long surface vein are destroyed or they are incompetent, so the whole blood column will be a single column, and the impulse can be transmitted from one end till the other end, and you can feel at the other end. That's known as positive Schwartz test. So basically, we will be discussing about the causation and reasons, etiology of the varicosity. So one of the varicosity is collagen disorder. That's the veins are incompetent, and there's some synthetic error in that. So it could be involvement of one of the valve or all of the valves. So if you can see and you can feel that all of the valves in the long surface vein are incompetent, so can also be possible that the valves are incompetent at the level of perforators and deep system. So this is Schwartz test. What other clinical test did you perform?
Then I performed a Brodie Stanley Lendenberg test, sir. After emptying the vein, I applied the tourniquet just below the FSFJ On standing, sir, the varicose vein did not refill. When I released the tourniquet, immediately it filled rapidly. It signifies that the SFJ was incompetent, sir. Apart from that, if there is, sir, if it takes less, if it takes more than 20 seconds, sir, then it means that there is some perforator incompetence as well, and which is
Basically, let me
Trendelenburg
describe.
2 test.
Basically, the Brody's Trendelenburg test is performed to identify the competency or otherwise of the saphenofemoral junction. But on the other hand, it can also give you a clue about the incompetency of lower down perforators.
Yes.
So the test is done by raising the leg, emptying and squeezing the veins, emptying the veins, and then you put your thumb at saphenofemoral junction. Alternatively, you can also use a tourniquet at the uppermost level of the thigh, because
Yes,
while putting your thumb, you can misplace it, right? You can miss the exact saphenofemoral junction, and you can, especially in obese people. So for that reason, you can use a tourniquet which can circumferentially occlude around the thigh. So, and then you make the patient stand and release the tourniquet or thumb, whatever it is. So
yes,
look at the direction from where the veins are filling rapidly, right? If the veins are filled directly, rapidly from above, it means SFJ incompetence. And if the veins are filled quickly or directly, but with a slow progression from below, it means one or more than one of the lower down perforators are incompetent.
yes,
True?
sir. Yes, sir.
So it's basically the direction of filling. But normally the veins would fill with a very slow speed. So if there's rapid filling, refilling of the veins, it means there's something regurgitation, something abnormal. So the regurgitation will be either from the SFJ or from one or more than one of the lower down perforators. So this is, suppose if you put your thumb, you have released your thumb and there's rapid refilling from above. So what does it mean? This is known as Trendelenburg 1. And the pathology is at the SFJ. And what is Trendelenburg 2?
When there is a play filling from the lower side, sir, from below, sir, and it shows the
Okay,
perforator incompetence.
you have squeezed the veins, you have emptied the veins, and you have occluded the saphenofemoral junction. You make the patient stand and you release your thumb, or even without releasing your thumb, there is rapid refilling of the veins from below. So it means the blood is regurgitating somewhere from the deep to superficial system, and that's not from SFJ, there's somewhere from lower down.
Lower down.
Okay, so this is known as Trendelenburg test. What
Yes,
else?
sir. Then, sir, I perform multiple tourniquet tests to know the exact level of the perforators if there is any perforator incompetence, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
So
what
the
we do?
Trendelenburg test basically gave you an idea that some of the perforators are incompetent. And in order to exactly locate the level of incompetent perforator, you have to perform these multiple tourniquet tests. And how it is being performed?
Sir, we apply a tourniquet at the first at the level of the ankle, sir. The second one just below the knee, and the third one is above the knee. The fourth one, which is optional, we do is just to occlude the SFJ junction, sir. Then after that, sir, we release the tourniquet sequentially from below. First, we release the tourniquet of the ankle, and we see it. If there is sir, appearance of varicosity, it means that the ankle perforators or the Cockett's perforators are incompetent, sir.
Yes. And similarly, you go on and release the tourniquet upwards towards the uppermost thigh. And that's how you can exactly locate the level of incompetent perforator.
Yes,
and this test is also known as Ochsner-Mahoney's test, or triple tourniquet test. The fourth tourniquet, you rightly said, it is an optional. It's only tied in a case in which you have already proved with the help of your Trendelenburg test that SFJ is incompetent. So in order to occlude the SFJ incompetency, you have to apply tourniquet just to occlude that one, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what other clinical tests did you perform?
Sir, then I applied rubber tourniquet at the upper 1/3 of the calf and asked the patient to perform 10 repetitive toe movements. The patient did not experience
Yes.
any pain. This was basically modified Sperti test, sir. This is the significance of this test is to know about deep vein thrombosis. If the patient experiences excruciating pain after this maneuver, it will tell us that the patient is having a compromised deep system, sir.
Okay. So this modified Perthes test is basically performed to include or exclude the possibility of deep vein thrombosis as a reason for varicosities.
Yes, sir.
And what other clinical test?
Sir, I performed Hagen's test, sir. After emptying the vein on lying down, sir, I did not feel any defect in the fascia for any deep perforator incompetence, sir. The Fagan's test
Okay.
is basically performed to know about any blowouts which will shows the perforator incompetence, sir.
Okay, Fagan's test is basically if you move the tips of your fingers along the course of long saphenous vein, you can feel tender defects in the deep fascia, crater-like defects in the deep fascia. It's basically the defect in the deep fascia is because of the prolonged and long-standing incompetency at the perforator level. So the perforators are getting dilated as well as the defect in the deep fascia from where the perforators are passing through. They are also widened, and with the tip of your finger, you can feel the defect in the deep fascia. Normally, you cannot feel it. It's not possible for humanly to feel it. So that is known as positive Fagan's test. And the Fagan's test is basically telling you about the exact level of incompetent perforator.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the
Right.
examination of these were the tests which I performed to know about more about the varicosity, sir. After that, sir, I examined the lymph nodes, and it did not
Okay,
reveal any.
that's right. But while feeling for the course of the long saphenous vein,
Yes,
what
sir.
other features you can detect over there other than Fagan's test?
Sir,
Fagan's test.
if the skin is hardened edematous, sir, it can give us the clue of lipodermatosclerosis as well.
That's true. What else you can feel in the
Uh,
vein?
Sir, if there is hard lumps present inside the vein, it can give you a clue for superficial thrombophlebitis, sir.
Okay, it can get complicated in the form of thrombophlebitis, and
Yes,
that
sir.
can be felt with the tips of your fingers. And sometimes the thrombosis has already occurred, and thrombosis is followed by recanalization or occlusion of these superficial veins, and you can feel cord-like veins in the subcutaneous area. So there's again one of the complications associated with varicosities.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now tell me and summarize what are points in your history and examination which are suggestive of your diagnosis?
Sir, first of all, the patient profession was pointing towards the varicosities of primary origin. He was a tailor, sir. He was a obese person, which is also a risk factor for varicosities, sir. The patient has cramping pain. He has heaviness, and sir, the patient had the patient was having uh, symptoms of varicosities for very long, which further leads to pigmentation and lipodermatosclerosis. And it wasn't of very new onset, which was adding for the complications of varicose veins, sir. On examination, sir, Morris's test was positive, sir. The Trendelenburg's was positive, sir. Short's test was also positive. Apart from this, sir, multiple tourniquet tests showed a level of perforated incompetence at the level of mid thigh, sir. Dots
Okay.
to me, dots.
One of the reason for varicosity could be possibly AV malformation. So was
Yes,
there
sir.
any clue of AV malformation or
Sir,
AV fistula formation?
Sir, sir, I heard I looked for any bruit present. There was no bruit present at auscultation, and there was no machinery
First, you
murmur,
should feel
which I.
for a thrill. First, you should feel for a thrill, and
Yes,
then if there is evidence, then you can auscultate also.
yes,
Also,
sir.
tell me what is varicosity?
Sir, varicosity, sir, varicosity is basically dilated, tortuous subcutaneous vein, which is usually more than 3 millimeters in diameter, sir, and
What are
normally
different
present in applied position.
what are different types of varicose veins and reasons for varicosity?
Sir, the reason, sir, the varicose veins can be congenital. It can be a primary varicose vein in which we cannot identify any cause, and it can be secondary varicose vein in which we have identified any cause of varicose vein.
Okay. What is SEEP classification of varicosity?
Sir, basically, SEEP classification of varicosities. SEEP stands for clinical classification, E for etiological classification, A for anatomical classification, and P for pathological classification. This classification is meant to help in management, sir. The clinical classification is further divided into six classes. The class 0 is no visible or palpable venous disease, sir. In class 1, there will be telangiectasias or reticular vein. In class 2, there is visible varicose veins. In class 3, there will be edema. And in class 4, there will be skin changes. And in class 5, there will be major complication of the varicose vein, which is healed ulceration. And in class 6, the skin changes will be there with an active ulceration, sir.
Okay. And then etiological classification, as you already mentioned about the primary and secondary.
Yes, sir.
Secondary, the most common reason for secondary varicosity is?
Sir, post-thrombotic syndrome, sir, and sir, due to DVT, sir.
Okay, what are the anatomical classifications?
Sir, anatomically, the way it is divided into 4 classes. Superficial veins is regarded as AS, sir, then deep veins and perforating veins, and when no venous location can be identified, sir.
Okay. And the pathological classification is again?
Sir, it is again divided into 4, sir. The first one is when there is reflux present. The other one is obstruction, and then the third one where we have both reflux as well as obstruction, and and the last one is when no venous pathophysiology is identified.
Okay. Can you briefly tell me about the anatomy of lower limb venous drainage, please?
Yes, sir. Sir, the anatomy of the lower limb is divided into 3, sir. One is the deep vein system, the other one is superficial vein system, and the third one is the perforator system, which is joining the deep and the superficial veins, sir. In deep vein, starting from the lower leg, in the legs, sir, there are 3 major veins, which are posterior tibial veins, sir. Apart from posterior tibial vein, sir, there is peroneal vein and anterior tibial vein.
Basically, there is no such named veins, but the veins which are accompanying these vessels, anterior, posterior, and peroneal arteries, yes, right? And ultimately, they join to form the popliteal, and popliteal goes upwards and into the femoral vein and iliac vein, right?
Yes, sir.
And the superficial system?
Superficial is consisting of the long saphenous veins and the short saphenous veins, sir. And there are tributaries to it. Multiple tributaries are present as well, sir. Perforating veins, sir, in case of long saphenous vein, we have 4 perforators, which are dots perforators, void perforators, pockets perforators, and ankle perforators of May. And when it comes to short saphenous veins, sir, basis perforator, soleus perforator, and there was one gastrocnemius perforator.
Yes. So what is normal mechanics of blood flow?
Sir, the superficial vein, the superficial system is comprising of it's a low pressure system, and the deep is of a high pressure system. Basically, when there is any incompetence in the perforator wall, the high pressure system forces the blood to flow into
I'm talking of normal hemodynamics of blood flow in the lower limbs.
Sir,
I'm not talking of pathology.
okay, sir. Sir, normally, sir, the venous system flows from superficial to deep systems, sir, through perforators, and these the perforator walls are competent, sir.
Yes.
During walking, the calf muscles exerts pressure on the deep system, and the deep system is lined uh, uh, with various walls, and sir, it pushes the blood uh, to in anti-gravity fashion towards the iliac vein, sir, femoral and then iliac vein, sir.
Okay. If I got the answer like that, then normally the blood flows from deep system towards heart by pumping action of the muscles. And when the blood is pumped towards heart, so there is negative pressure produced inside the deep system. And due to that pressure gradient, the blood flows from superficial to the deep system. But the reverse flow from deep superficial system is prevented by veins in the perforators and at the subfemoral junction and suboperative junction also. Yes. But when there is incompetency at any level, at the level of veins in the perforators or veins in the subfemoral junction or veins in the suboperative junction, so what happens is blood, in spite of being pumped towards heart, is being pumped towards superficial system because there is easy escape and that's how the superficial system gets reflux, and the reflux blood will cause dilatation and engorgement of the superficial veins, and the superficial system is always in hypertension. So that's what the mechanism of the varicosity is. Yes. Okay. After you have examined this patient properly, what investigations are you proposing for confirming your diagnosis or otherwise?
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, I would like to do.
Can you show yourself, please? The audience, they cannot see you.
Sir, how? Maria, can you help me out?
You can turn on the video option, camera option.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, I would like to perform duplex ultrasound, sir. After that, sir, I would like to do sir, Doppler as well, sir. I would like to perform, sir. The duplex will tell, sir, each and every detail. And if the duplex is lacking something, we can further go for venography as well, sir.
Okay. I mean, the duplex on one side is a Doppler study. On the other hand, you can also use the B mode ultrasound.
Sir.
It can tell you about the anatomical configuration of the vessels.
Yes, sir.
So what abnormal things it can detect?
Sir, it can detect, sir, if the lumen is occluded, sir. It can detect that. Apart from that, it can tell us the diameter of the vessel. It can tell us the thickness of the vessel as well, sir. And apart from that, it can also tell us.
It can tell you about the details of superficial and both deep system.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Flow, regurgitation, and obstruction and occlusion, right? So, and what is Doppler?
Sir, Doppler just tell, sir, Doppler ultrasound. Just
how do you perform a Doppler study in varicosity?
Sir, we place the Doppler at the varicosity, and we after placing it, we hear the sound, sir. Apart from that, sir, distal to the varicosity or where the probe is being placed, we push the calf muscle, and then we hear the sound, and after that sound we release it, and we hear the sound again. If the sound is of a very short duration, less than 0.5 seconds in superficial system, we consider it normal. But when the sound is greater than 0.5 and it's a long whoosh sound, it confirms that there is a reflux that is present.
Okay, right. So what you do exactly, you make the patient stand and you sit along this patient's side. You put your left hand on the cuff of the affected limb, and you put the probe on the saphenofemoral junction, and you press on the cuff. So what will happen by pressing the cuff? You are pushing the blood upwards, and that upward flow of blood will be transformed into a form of sound that is known as a whoop sound. But when you release the pressure, there is a certain degree of fall due to gravity. But the further fall of the blood will be prevented by presence of whales.
Right.
So this a short second sound is also normal. So if there is a prolonged second sound, it means there are two possibilities. Either the blood column is falling in the deep system because the deep veins are they are destroyed, number one, or there is regurgitation of blood from deep to superficial system. In both cases, there will be prolonged second sound. So how you will differentiate, because you are interested in the regurgitation and you are interested in the deep vein also. So to differentiate between the prolonged second sound due to fall of the blood in the deep system or due to regurgitation would be identified by putting a tourniquet. If by applying a tourniquet, if the second sound becomes normal, it becomes normalized. So it simply means that there was regurgitation which you already blocked by a tourniquet. If the second sound is still prolonged, so it means there is a fall of the blood in the deep system, not regurgitation.
Right.
Next.
Sir, then we can go for ultrasound of the abdomen to know the status of any.
Sorry, you mentioned about venography. You mentioned about the venography. What is the difference between venography and varicography?
Sir, in varicogram we directly inject the contrast medium in the varicose vein, and we perform it. In venography, sir, we inject the contrast distally, and then we take the image. Sir.
Okay, let me explain it a bit. Like the venography can be performed in two ways: either for detection of regurgitation or for detection of deep vein thrombosis. So in venogram, there's in a descending venogram, you identify the femoral vein and you inject the dye retrogradely, and that will be showing you regurgitation at the saphenofemoral junction if it's there, right? And an antegrade venogram is performed by injecting dye in the superficial and not in the deep vein. And retrograde, we were injecting the dye into the deep vein, that is the femoral vein. But in case of the antegrade or ascending venogram, you inject into one of the vein of the dorsum of the foot, but you apply a venous tourniquet on the leg so that the blood goes from superficial to the deep system, and the deep system which will be visualized, and you can see a thrombus or recanalized deep vein in that case. This is something venogram, ascending and descending venograms. Varicography is totally different. You inject the dye in the superficial veins, and your aim is to identify the varicosities, and that's different tributaries and different courses and different parts of the long saphenous vein, as you have already mentioned, because the superficial vein has got multiple tributaries also, and that have to be identified and they have to be addressed when it comes to the treatment and surgical option, right? So in order to identify the exact tributaries and the exact involved part of the superficial vein, varicography is performed. Okay, and then you mentioned about the abdominal ultrasonography. That's true for detection of any abdominal or pelvic masses. And sometimes you need to go for MR venogram or CT venogram, but that's only in very selective and very selective cases.
Yes, sir.
Okay, after you have confirmed that this patient has got right leg long saphenous vein varicosity secondary to none. I mean, it's an idiopathic or primary varicosity. And the deep veins, the deep veins were found to be totally normal. It's mandatory that you have to confirm. Otherwise, you will end up with problems. Yes. So what's the treatment option? What are the treatment options you have?
Sir, the treatment options that I have right now is either we can go for intravenous laser ablation or radiofrequency ablation if we want to go for minimal invasive techniques, sir. And if you want to go for open technique, we can go for Trendelenburg's operation as well as stripping and
Okay,
perforator ligation.
Heather, suppose that the patient is a 70-year-old male patient with multiple comorbidities and he is not fit in for any kind of surgical intervention. And he has, one of the presentation is mild symptoms like pain or discomfort or itching. And there is nothing like complication is there with it. So how do you proceed?
We can go for compression hosiery, sir. We'll ask the patient to get a compression hosiery for him compression stocking, and we will manage him conservatively. One of the pharmacological method which we can also perform is with the use of a Deflon, sir, which is micronized flavonoid, sir. It has also been used these days. And apart from that, sir, we can ask him to get a compressional stocking for him. There are multiple types of compression.
And what else?
Sir,
is there any role of lifestyle modification? Is there any role of lifestyle modification?
Yes, sir. If the person has to start exercising, sir, he has to while sleeping he has to elevate his limbs, sir. And apart from that, sir, one of the things that he has to use the compressional stockings, which I already mentioned.
Okay, compression stocking. If he is symptomatic, number one, if in order to avoid complications, he has to quit smoking. If he's a smoker, he has to put his leg in elevated posture, and he has to modify the lifestyle also at his workplace also.
Yes.
Okay, and suppose the patient is symptomatic and the non-surgical treatment didn't work at all. So what else you can offer to the patient?
Sir, in this patient, we can offer him endovenous laser ablation, sir, or radiofrequency ablation, sir.
Okay, both of these facilities are not available at all at your workplace.
Sir, then we can offer him for open procedure, sir, by doing a Trendelenburg's procedure, sir.
Okay, but you have found that he has got only few collaterals which are bothering him, and the main trunk of the long surface vein is totally normal.
Then, sir, it makes an indication.
Or the patient has presented you with the recurrence of after prior surgery.
Sir, then it's a prime candidate for foam sclerotherapy, sir.
Sclerotherapy. What? How do you perform sclerotherapy, and what sclerosing agents are used for this purpose?
We use a Tessera's method, sir. The agents which we use normally are sodium tetradecyl sulfate, sir. Apart from ethanol olate, sir. The method which we use is that we have a three-way catheter, and in three-way catheter we have two syringes with us. In one syringe we inflate air, and in another we inflate it with the sclerosing agent. Normally the ratio of sclerosing to air is 1:3 or 1:4. We oscillate it vigorously between the two to make it foam, and then we directly inject into the varicosities. Normally we inject 1 to 2 ml.
Right, you're right. This sclerosing agents either it can be injected in the form of liquid or in the form of a foam. Both can be done, right?
Yes, sir.
But what's the significance of foam formation, right?
Sir, basically in foam formation, sir, the quantity of sclerosing agent is decreased. The foam has a lot more volume than a pure liquid, sir. And normally
can you inject in a major trunk?
Sir, normally it is not used for dilated truncal or axial veins, sir. This is not an indication for it.
Okay, so what are the indications of sclerotherapy then?
Sir, sclerotherapy is mostly used when you have perforator incompetence or small veins that are very less in size, and as well when there has been recurrence.
Okay. What are the complications associated with the sclerotherapy?
Sir, sclerotherapy can lead to superficial thrombophlebitis, sir. It can lead to bleeding. Uh, it can lead to infection, sir. It can lead to deep vein thrombosis. And these are the complications. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Yes, sir. Uh, sir, apart from that, w- it can all it can also lead to recanalization because recurrence can also be there. Sir.
Okay, so it can lead to local complications, systemic complication when it gets absorbed. And what is ecosclerotherapy?
Sir, ecosclerotherapy is when we use ultrasound as a method for detecting the varicose vein and then uh, injecting the sclerosing agent.
Okay. Suppose a person is totally fit person and he is not a candidate at all for non-surgical therapy. So what, and he has got a symptomatic right-sided varicosities. So what treatment options do you have for him?
Sir, as I mentioned, if I have availability of endovenous laser ablation or radiofrequency ablation, this is the gold standard these days. If we are not having those facilities, then we can proceed with open procedure. And in the current scenario, with the SFJ in SFJ incompetence, we can go for Trendy Landenberg's operation as well as stripping of the long saphenous vein.
How do you perform Trendelenburg's operation?
Sir, Trendelenburg's operation, we give an incision lateral to the pubic tubercle, normally on the groin crease. We identify the SFJ, we ligate the SFJ close to where it is inserting on the common femoral vein. And sir, apart from that, the tributaries, there are 6 tributaries that we have to ligate. The important thing here is that we have, after ligation of all the 6 tributaries, we have to check at least 1 centimeter above and 1 centimeter below to see that if there are any other tributaries which is not common, and we shouldn't be missing it.
Okay, okay. What is the precaution to be looked for and precaution to be taken while stripping the long saphenous vein?
Sir, while stripping the long saphenous vein, uh, we normally use Babcock stripper in our setup, and sir, we have to take care that we have to strip it above the knee or just below the knee, not below the knee, because it can lead to
Why it's important not to go all the way up to the ankles?
sir, saphenous nerve can be damaged, sir. And
Okay.
when it comes to short femoral vein, we are really careful about the sural vein.
Okay. So sural vein, sural nerve, right? So if a person has got uh, SFJ incompetency as well as multiple perforated incompetency,
Yes,
so what do you do for that?
sir, one option is that we can go for for perforators, sir. We can go for
Yes, hello.
hello. Can you hear me, sir? Hello. Hello.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Sir, for perforators, sir, we can use foam sclerotherapy or we can use subfacial endoscopic perforator surgery for ligation of the perforators, and we can do an Trendelenburg's procedure for the truncal or main axial vein.
Okay. Right. And suppose there are multiple collaterals are also involved, and you cannot do anything to that as far as the Trendelenburg operation is concerned or stripping is concerned. What else you can do for that, for those collaterals?
Sir, we can for collaterals we can do if the collaterals are small we can do phlebotomy, sir.
So how do you do that?
Sir, we what we do is we put a small incision just above the small collaterals. We hook it with a mosquito forceps or vein hooker, and we take it out and we ligate it and remove the vein.
Suppose if you found that a person secondary to varicosity has developed an ulcer on the Gators area, how do you treat that one?
Okay, sir. Sir, if there is an ulcer, sir, what we can do is, sir, there are multiple methods for that. One is, sir, what we can do is pharmacological therapy, which is pentoxyphylline, sir, which we can use. If we are going for the conservative management, we can give compression stockings to that person. Sir, if you want to perform interventional procedures, we can go for superficial venous ablation surgery, sir. And we can also excise the ulcer and place a grafted mesh. Apart from that, sir, biological dressing has been also being in used, and there are two types of biological dressings. Number one is fetal keratocytes dressing, and the other one is collagen mesh dressing.
So why there would be ulcer formation in varicosities? What's the mechanism of ulcer formation?
Sir, ulcer formation is mostly in post thrombotic limb, sir, due to venous superficial venous hypertension, and the superficial venous hypertension can be because of the perforator incompetence or deep vein thrombosis, sir.
Okay, basically what happens, there is a dilatation of the veins and there is a loss of normal lamellar flow of blood. There is margination of blood cells to the surrounding, and
Yes,
their oxygen radicals are released, and that in turn lead to this capillary permeability is increased, and the blood supply to the skin is decreased. So that's how the the skin is ulcerated.
yes, sir. Fibrin cuff theory, sir.
Yeah. Fibrin cuff theory is basically an obsolete now, and it's no more. It's no more. Right.
There are two theories basically. One is the fibrin cuff theory. The other one is the leukocyte deposition, which is more acceptable.
Leukocyte deposition is the most recent one.
Yes.
Okay, so suppose you have found that the varicosities are formed because of underlying deep vein thrombosis, and the patient is too symptomatic. You cannot keep him or her on non-surgical treatment. So what treatment options you can offer?
In patients, sir, in which we are having deep vein thrombosis, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we can do.
Okay, let me explain. Right, deep vein thrombosis of two types: acute and chronic deep vein thrombosis. Acute deep vein thrombosis, you forget about the varicosity and you have to treat the acute deep vein thrombosis, and that has to be dealt and treated according to principles and rules. But when it comes to chronic deep vein thrombosis, so the deep veins are almost transformed into cord-like structures, and there is no recanalization and there is no lumen inside deep veins. So for practically there are no deep veins, right? So the only venous drainage system available for this patient are the superficial veins. And because of overload of these superficial veins, they are tortuous and dilated and varicosities are there. So what treatment you can offer?
Sir, one of the treatment which I remember is we can offer him a repair of the deep vein walls, sir. The other is, sir, vein transposition, sir, from the contralateral side, sir.
Okay, from the contralateral side, the normal lung saphenous vein is released and the distal part is taken out through a suprapubic tunnel and it's anastomosed to the abnormal side on the other opposite side.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what are the recent advances in the treatment of varicosities?
Sir, one is, sir, subfacial endoscopic perforator surgery. The other one is,
Yes.
sir, sir, VenoSeal, sir. This is the latest one, and in VenoSeal, sir, a cyanoacrylate adhesive is used. This is the basically glue that gives an adhesion to the vein, sir.
Yeah.
These are the two modalities that are recently used, and the other two which were mentioned, but they are now commonly used. One is the endovenous laser ablation and radiofrequency ablation.
Okay, and endovascular procedures like laser ablation and radiofrequency ablation. Okay, while doing laser ablation, what kind of laser you are using for this purpose?
Sir, it's a YAG laser, sir.
Sorry?
Sir, it's a YAG laser, sir.
No, it's not YAG, it's a DIODE, diode. Laser is used for that purpose, but before subjecting this patient to laser ablation, because there were transmission of the heat from the walls of the veins to the surrounding structures, and obviously this underlying skin can be burnt. The veins are subcutaneous ones, so you have to, yeah, you have to do intumescence of the surrounding structures before you do it.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how do you do follow-up for such patients?
Sir, after the operation, we ask the patient to wear compressional stocking, and we ask the patient to give a follow-up in after a week time, and then, sir, in 3 months and then 6 months, I guess, sir.
Okay, long follow-up is needed as far as the recurrence is concerned and complications are concerned. So at every follow-up visit, you have to ascertain whether the patient has got any complication or not, complication of the disease, complication of treatment you have offered him or her, and any evidence of recurrence, right? So long-term follow-up is needed for months to years, right?
Right.
So that's it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. For the participants, now you can raise your hands and ask the questions. Dr. Asad, you're here? Can't see Dr. Asad Maroof.
Sir, he's here, maybe some mic problem. So there were a few questions.
Okay.
So there were a few questions from the audience side. Dr. Wahid was asking that the left side is common than the right. Why is this so?
Left side is common than the right one.
So is it because of the anatomical that the left iliac vein goes behind from the right from the IVC towards the left behind the artery, the basis of May-Thurner syndrome?
Okay, interestingly, there are multiple factors. There's not a single factor. Is left-sided varicoses are more common as compared to right ones. So anatomical reason is one of them, and the most important one is like the left-sided colon is most of the time loaded. It can compress on the veins. This could be one of the possibilities, hypothetical reason, not a proven one.
Right, sir. So Dr. Asad Maroof has joined.
Okay. Asad Saab, any comment on this?
There is one question from my side, sir. What if we have performed a surgery on a patient and we did a sclerotherapy? If they both lead to a recurrence, then what we do?
Okay. So recurrence, you have to reassess the patient, number one. And number two, you have to grade the disease once again. And then the treatment plans should be once again planned according to your grading of the disease. suppose you have done sclerotherapy for what disease? You have done sclerotherapy for a collateral, number one, and the recurrence is exactly at the point we have injected the sclerosis, or the recurrence is somewhere else. So most of the time, the recurrence is at a different point. Suppose you have only performed a linear operation, and you on your clinical examination investigations were suggestive that the lower down perforators were totally normal, and only SFJ was abnormal, and you have done only the Lindbergh operation for that. So later on, the lower down perforators, they have become incompetent, and they have given rise to recurrence. So obviously this time you have to go for a definitive procedure which can ablate all possible reasons for recurrence. I mean, stripping and phlebectomies.
Right.
If anyone has a question, he can raise their hands. He or she can raise their hands, and then we can unmute. Okay, so sir, in the chat there was another question by Dr. Salman. He was asking whether the history of dialysis and AV fistula is important in this.
Sorry, question was?
The history of dialysis and AV fistula.
For
this varicose veins development of.
I did not get the question at all.
Okay, so I'll move to the next. Sid,
no, just the person can ask himself or herself the question.
Salman, you can raise your hand if you
Salman
would like to ask this question. Yes, Madiha, unmute your mic.
Sir, there is a question from Zakir Ahmed. Can sclerotherapy be used for telangiectasia and reticular veins?
Yes, telangiectatic and reticular veins are usually intracutaneous, and so the skin complications are more common with sclerotherapy in this. But okay, yes, you can try in selective cases, but you have to be very much vigilant, and there should be no chance of extravasation of the dye at all. So it should be done by an expert hand.
So there is a technique which is used for very small collaterals, in which we use a 30 gauge needle, sir.
Yes.
And then we inject it.
Yes, so the next question is, someone wants to know the difference between arterial and venous ulcer.
Arterial and venous ulcers?
Arterial and venous.
Okay, I mean, this subject we discussed in last session, because arterial ulcers are usually happening on areas of least vascularity, like the tips of the toes, heels, and the hello?
Yes, sir.
Right. Arterial ulcers are deep ulcers. They are punched out margins, and they are tender with surrounding skin is got less less temperature, and the pulses are usually absent or feeble on the affected side. Unlike that, the venous ulcers usually are situated on the gaiters area. They are bigger in sizes, and the margins are sloping, and the floor is usually covered with a granulation tissue. And arterial ulcer, the floor is usually covered by a sloughy tissue, and the surrounding skin is normal in venous ulcers. There is no temperature difference, and the pulses are totally normal, and there is evidence of varicosity on the affected side.
Right, sir. And what is the significance of cholecystectomy history? Is there any association?
I can't say any association. Dr. Asad?
Dr. Asad, you have to unmute yourself.
Having some connection problem. And so Dr. Aisha is asking, can you please explain venous claudication?
Okay, venous claudication, what happens that normally what happens, there is there's thrombosis or occlusion of the veins, and as a result of that, the collateral veins are developed and they are established. These collateral veins are sufficient, they are capable of venous drainage for the SAM limb and resting position. But when the patient is made to exercise, so the collateral bed of the venous system is not sufficient to drain the blood because there is influx of more blood inside the exercising limb. So in that case, the patient will experience pain in case of exercise, in case of narrowed vessels or occluded vessels, and with the insufficient collateral bed of venous system. And the patient will experience a bursting pain. So this is known as venous claudication. Venous claudication is very interesting. Arterial claudication is totally relieved by taking rest or by stopping the journey. But venous claudication, it gets relieved to some extent, but not totally as it happens in case of arterial claudication.
Right, sir. Nicely explained. Sir, Dr. Zakir is also asking the difference in treatment
Another question?
when varicosities are involving only the foot. So what is the difference in treatment?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Sorry?
So what is the difference in treatment when varicosities involve? Sorry, sir.
What's the answer? What's the question?
So what is the difference in treatment when varicosities involve the foot?
Okay. When varicosities are involving the foot. Okay. Foot veins are usually smaller ones, and they don't have any direct communication with the deep system in the form of perforators. So phlebectomy is one of the options if you are combining it with the leg phlebectomies, but most of the time it works well with sclerotherapy.
Right, sir. Sir, and Dr. Neelam was asking, is there any difference between primary and familial varicose veins?
Okay, familial is totally different. Primary, in case of primary, we say there's no reason at all. We don't find any reason for varicosity, but still there are varicosity. In familial, there are certain familial disorders which are responsible, and they are associated with certain types of syndromic conditions. So, like one of the differential diagnosis of Dr. Heather was Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome, right? KT syndrome. So in which there are so many other problems like hemangiomas are elongated in long limbs. So in familial condition, there are certain synthesis disorder in the collagen formation, especially collagen type 3 and type 4. So that's what makes it familial. And primary varicosity, there's no reason at all and the rest of the, there is no rest of the pathology, and there is no syndromic condition at all.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Harris is asking, bilateral varicose veins, can we operate at the same time?
Okay, this is something debatable, right? Okay, there are some of the people, they are of this thinking that once you are putting the patient to sleep, why not to operate on both sides, and why not to repeat the same procedure on both sides? But practically speaking, you are totally making the patient immobile for a long time, because when he is injured on both sides, you make him immobile. The chances of complications, the chances of risk of DVT development is more on bilateral surgery as compared to unilateral surgery. So as we know, nowadays the anesthesia is quite safe, and there's no complication most of the time associated with anesthesia. So why not to do it one at the same setting? Why to enrest the patient for bilateral surgeries?
Right, sir. Dr. Ishrar is asking, what instructions should be given to patients after open surgery like stripping for varicose veins about mobilization and follow-up?
Okay, early mobilization is the key to success, number one, because one of the complications we mentioned was deep vein thrombosis associated with surgical procedure. So in order to avoid that, apart from pharmacological DVT prophylaxis, the patient has to be mobilized as early as possible. Number one, and the patient has to be well hydrated. Number two, and the patient has to keep the limb elevated just to prevent the edema if it occurs. And wound care, of course, is important, antibiotics and painkillers.
Thank you, sir. So Dr. Maham is asking about the treatment of pelvic congestion syndrome and what exactly causes that.
Okay, pelvic congestion syndrome is hypertension of generalized venous system and vascular system. So that has to be taken as a separate case, and the venous congestion, the pelvic congestion syndrome should be taken as different, and then you have to exclude the other with the vascular anomalies, and you treat the underlying cause in that reason, in that condition. So the varicosity should not be touched in that condition, right?
Right, sir. And Dr. Waliur Rahman is asking about composition of tumescent anesthesia.
The normal saline with the local anesthetic.
Okay. And it is to prevent the lateral thermal damage.
Thermal damage, yes, it's out of question.
Right, sir. Dr. Maham again asking if a cirrhotic patient develops hemorrhoidal varicosities, how to treat and how to differentiate from real hemorrhoids.
Okay, this rectal varices is a totally different condition. Number one, the patient has history of, or the patient has got evidence of CLD, number one. And on proctoscopy, you have found that there is no external variant of the hemorrhoids. The totally internal hemorrhoids about the dentate line. And the upper limit of the hemorrhoidal cushion cannot be seen, or the dilated vein cannot be seen. So in that condition, you have to treat the underlying cause. You don't have to do a local treatment for that, and you treat the underlying reason of CLD.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. Harris is asking if the femoral vein is inadvertently injured during varicose vein surgery, can we still proceed to stripping and ligation?
Not at all, not at all, not at all. You have done a bigger sin, right? So try to compensate for that rather than doing smaller things like varicosity. Forget about the varicosity. So femoral vein is the major venous drainage. And if you have injured the femoral vein, it means you have already injured the long saphenous vein. So you try to repair that. And if you have to ask the vascular team for immediately, and the femoral vein has to be repaired adequately, the patient has to be put on the heparin, and limb elevation and all precautions have to be taken. And don't go for rest of the procedure and abandon the procedure onwards.
If you can briefly.
Sorry?
The ecosclerotherapy.
Ecosclerotherapy, we did discuss, I think so. I mean, if you are doing it blind, the sclerotherapy is done blindly, that is just sclerotherapy. And if you're doing with the help of your ultrasonic or this Doppler probe, so it is known as ecosclerotherapy.
All right, sir. Thank you. And what is popliteal entrapment syndrome, popliteal vein entrapment, and different from popliteal artery entrapment syndrome?
Popliteal vein entrapment syndrome. Heather?
Yes, sir. Sir, basically in popliteal vein entrapment, there is it is because of the anatomical difference in gastrocnemius insertion, sir. One of the treatment modalities is that in popliteal vein entrapment, you have to refix the gastrocnemius insertion, sir.
The basic principle, vascular entrapment happens anywhere in the human body. Either the vein is entrapped between the muscles or tendons or the facial sheaths. So the popliteal vein goes beneath the gastrocnemius, and it can get entrapped over there by the attachment of the head of the gastrocnemius, and it can get compressed or totally occluded. So this is known as popliteal vein entrapment syndrome. And the treatment is so easier. The wall is not a disease, it's totally normal. You just need to release it from the entrapment factor.
Yes, sir.
And another question. You were saying something?
No, you just continue.
And Dr. William Rahman asking about how to differentiate between Belloni perforators and SPJ incoherence by tourniquet test.
Belloni perforators and SFJ.
Cephalopopliteal junction.
Okay, cephalopoplite is totally different because in that the short saphenous system is involved, and Belloni perforator or ankle perforators is for long saphenous vein. So the refilling will occur in short saphenous system or in long saphenous system. So there's rarely any communication between short and long saphenous system. And if it
both have different perforators, sir.
Different perforators, and if there is a communicating vein between the long and short saphenous system, and if it is pattern, normally it's not patterned. If it gets patterned and it is visible on the lateral side of the thigh, that is known as vein of Giacomeini. So that's totally a different story. But Belloni is the two systems are totally different. They are not communicated with each other.
Yes, sir. And next question is by Dr. Harris. When should one change the dressing after varicose vein surgery?
When we should change the dressing after varicose vein surgery?
Yes, sir.
I mean, this is something variable. Like if the dressing is soaked, you can change it within 24 hours. Otherwise, you leave it for 48 hours.
Right, sir.
And the lesson is that after 48 hours, you remove your dressing and leave it open for external oxygenation. You don't redress it, okay, if it's not infected.
Sir, book says 48 hours, sir.
Yeah.
Right, sir. And Dr. Wahid asking about vena cava filter and how it is angiographically implanted.
Sorry, once again.
So inferior vena cava filters.
Inferior vena cava filters for?
How they are.
DVT prophylaxis.
So that's not done in case of varicosities for DVT. And for microembolization, you put a filter inside the IVC, and filter has to prevent the microembolism in the pulmonary system. And there are different types of filters available, Greenfield, Mobinuddin, and umbrella-like. And that has to be put by interventional radiologist under ultrasound guidance, and that has to be placed from femoral vena gains.
So it is done by interventional radiologist.
Yeah, it's job of interventional nowadays. Previously it used to be put by open surgical procedure. No more practice at all.
Right. So next question by Dr. Saad is management of chronic venous ulcer. Can we use any surgical procedure for that? And
okay, all right. You start from A and go to Z. Right, first elevation and local dressing, and there's no role of this topical iron application at all. But the Bisgard method of 4-layer and 5-layer dressing, limb elevation, and as you all already know, that underlying cause is the varicosity and the hypertension. So try to ligate the veins which are supplying to the base of the ulcer from all different quadrants of the ulcer. So that is the surgical option you have.
Then how do we diagnose the vein of Giacomeini?
How do you diagnose vein of Giacomeini?
Yes, so just by the location?
Yeah, it's just located on the lateral side of the thigh. And it can also be visible on varicography if it's dilated.
Right, sir. So Dr. Asad Maroof is saying excellent presentation by Dr. Haider and a very nice session. So there's another question by Dr. Israr Noor that most common complication occurs. What most common complication occurs if varicose veins are left untreated?
Okay, common complication which we mentioned are the commonest ones like eczema, dermatitis, lipodermatous sclerosis, and ulcers formation. And On the other hand, the superficial vein thrombosis is another common complication. It's not that uncommon.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question, participants? You can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you discontinue the recording, please?